Well, welcome everybody to another episode of Elijah's Leadership Podcast. I'm super excited that we have a special guest today with us. Is it pastor yet?
Not yet.
Not yet. Our friend Vitaliy, Isak, all the way from the Seattle area, here teaching at the school. So it's been a huge blessing. Been hearing a little bit from the students. So thank you for coming out here.
Yeah, thanks for having me. It's always a pleasure.
Yeah, thank you. And we're excited for today's episode. Just kind of going back and forth on what we should discuss or talk about. But, we've been in ministry a little bit over 10 years, probably at least. Around the 10-year mark, maybe a little bit more, a little less, give or take, I'm guessing, yeah?
Closer to 15 now.
15, yeah. Well, you've been around longer than I have in the ministry world, if you will. But that 10-year, right, like your tenure, your experience, if you will, it's not a lot, but it's also not a little. It's enough to kind of get a feel for things and been through a few waves of everything that the ministry can throw at you and working with people and all that stuff. So it's to say the least, it's it's not always easy,
No, it's not always fun.
Yeah, but it is fun sometimes.
Yeah, and
it's
not always hard.
Yeah, it's true. It's got everybody wants the glamour of kind of doing something or being in the front, and then you got to pay a price with that. So
yeah, the ministry for a lot of people is confined to the pulpit or the stage. Like, looks good when you're in the worship team or preaching a solid message. And,
it's good.
And no one knows that. Not no one, but not a lot of people know that after you preached what they think is a solid message, you're in the hallway getting absolutely grilled because someone said, "Well, what did you mean by this?" And we were taught differently, and you don't even know how to answer the question. So well,
then you have all the prep work, you have everything else. It's just it's Saturday night and you want to go, I don't know, watch the UFC or something. I don't know. You want to go play golf, whatever. Go hang out. And it's like, you can do that. But sometimes you're like, no, I need to go polish up a couple things. So
100%.
Well, a couple things we want to discuss today. Vitaliy has been on the podcast already once, I believe. Kind of, we talked a little bit about the last few years of your life. Maybe you can just let us know where you're at right now, what you're doing, and then we'll jump into our topic.
Yeah, well, last time I was here was in a season where we had left the church that I was a youth pastor at for many years, and we were in the searching phases, just visiting churches, seeing what we like, and kind of finding ourselves, hoping to find a community that fits, not necessarily, fits just us, but in general what we think is a good vibe, what we think has a good doctrine, good teaching, something that we're like, our main priority was, do we want to raise kids in this kind of atmosphere?
Yeah.
And we found a great church. I don't even know if it's right saying we found it, because they're friends, we've known them.
Okay.
They're just a couple minutes down the road from from the church that we were at. But we visited a few times and we just loved what they were about, and so we ended up staying there. We serve there now. I'm helping with English service, and God willing, in a few months, I'll be ordained as one of the pastors there. So that's what we're doing now.
Wow.
Serving, doing what we can.
That's so good. So before we jump into our talk, what would you, looking back now, I mean, I'm sure it was a tough season.
Yeah.
Knowing what you know now, and knowing people that might be going through seasons of transition, what would you tell them now that you're kind of on the other side of it completely, almost? Well, basically are.
Yeah. I think the biggest thing that I do have a lot of regrets.
Okay.
And one of those is when you are in a situation where either you are experiencing some kind of church hurt or offense, especially if you are a public figure or someone who is involved in some level of ministry.
Yeah.
The flesh will say, cut the ties, burn the bridge, but that's not wise. And looking back at how everything ended and how we left, I knew that there came a time where certain things had happened where we just had to, like, you say, pull the plug, cut the tie, burn the bridge. And we had to make a decision and just go. And that's nothing, we love the church and we love the people that we were serving with. It just wasn't the place for us anymore. And my big regret is that there's still a lot of people. We have a lot of friends, family at the church that we were close to, and we didn't realize how much it affected everyone around us. And in hindsight, I would have done things a little bit differently, maintain more peace, maintain more relationships, because at the end of the day, now we're 2-3 years in from leaving, and there's still this sense of like, we're not completely at peace, maybe, or someone's not at peace with me. I did everything on my end,
right?
But I do know I could have done more uncertain things that would have maintained more peace.
That's good,
and wouldn't have cut the tie so hard to where like this got blown out of proportion and it was this big deal and stuff. It didn't really have to be.
When your emotions a little bit high, you kind of say things, do things, and then you look back and you're like, could have just kept quiet or something. Or
and the biggest thing is that when these certain things happened where we realized that's it, we have to go. Like this is, and again, it's not that the church is a bad church. It's a great church, great leadership for the most part. And when that happened, these certain things that we realized, it was something that culminated over many years. And then there was this very specific week that turned out to be like a push, like the point that pushed us over that line. And I came into my pastor, I called him, I said, hey, I need to talk to you tomorrow. We met up the next day and I said, we're done. We're leaving church membership and I'm leaving my post as a youth pastor. And he said, well, let's think about it. Let's talk about it. I said, no. And in that moment, the reason why I felt like I needed to do that and say no right now and I'm done is because if I gave it a week or a month, I love the church and the youth so much that I was pastoring that I felt like if I gave it a week or a month to think about it, it would pull me back in. In hindsight, that was not smart because kind of, like you said, pulled the plug, burned the bridge, cut the tie. The next day I'm at youth and I'm like, hey guys, I'm leaving. I'm stepping down. And it was really sudden and it left people with a lot of questions. There was accusations, rumors, and all the harm that those accusations, rumors, and all that stuff caused, they realize now were self-inflicted.
Okay.
Because what I could have said is, hey, we want to go in a different direction. We'll close out this season the proper way. We'll spend another month or two here while we prepare a new leader.
But is it kind of empowering to say the last word? To be like, you know what? I'm out.
in the moment it is.
Yeah.
In the moment it is.
Exactly what you're saying. Long term is like it could have been done.
Yeah, and I think in certain situations you want to say the last word and you should.
Yeah.
For people to understand that like, hey, this is not
okay, what's happening, or
this is not okay and I'm not brushing it off. And I didn't have this intention or desire and I didn't behave in such a way as to where the people that were in the youth ministry or in the church where they should or would have felt like something's wrong with the church.
Yeah.
And that's the key there is if you are going to have the final word, it can't be like something's wrong with the church, but you also can't be like something's wrong with me.
Yeah.
Like I'm having issues, so I'm stepping down.
Yeah. People are going to be like, that's going to be even more rumors for you.
Yeah.
Right?
And the final word, how you say it is what clarifies, hey, why are you leaving? In hindsight, I know a lot of people I talked to some parents of the young people that I was the youth pastor, and they're like, hey, that wasn't cool. My kids really liked you, and you just kind of dropped them.
Yeah.
And I didn't think about that then. Hothead emotions are running high, and you just kind of, I need to pull the plug. And at the end of the day, it just, hearing these things over a couple of years and how much effect it had on certain people and parents and people in the church, I realize now that if I could go back and do it a little bit differently, I definitely would.
That's so good. Well, that's actually really good, really mature, really well to draw something out of that. That's very powerful. So thanks for sharing that.
Of course.
On that same topic, actually, what we wanted to talk about, being in ministry already 15 years, looking back at yourself when you're 15, 16, 17, 18, starting out, preaching, traveling, what are some of the things that you would tell yourself now that you're like, okay, if I could talk to myself 10 years ago, 12 years ago, and just sit down and tell you a couple things, what would you tell them?
Slow down. That's the first one.
Yeah, okay.
When you're young and you get into, there's different cliques and seasons in life. And I think a lot of people that are in ministry now went through a season, well, at least this is what I'm guessing, where like you grow up after 10, 15 years, you see
Yeah.
ministry for what it is.
Yep.
When you're younger, you don't see ministry for what it is.
Right.
You see the highlights of ministry.
Yep. Okay.
And so you're, 14, 15, 16, you start preaching and people are like, oh, you're a good preacher, come preach here. And you're just like, oh yeah, this is cool. Like,
Yeah.
I'm invited, I'm respected, I'm honored
Yeah.
in all these places.
People
And
see me. This is
yeah,
awesome.
it's so cool, especially like, oh, you're so young and this, and so what it did for me is it put me in this spiral of like, oh yeah, I got potential. I got potential. The Lord has blessed, and that's all I heard, right? And and the reason wasn't because I was like such a good preacher or ministry, whatever. It was just because I was young.
Yeah.
And a lot of people like, well, God has given you a gift and you have potential, and that got to my head, and a lot of pride crept in. And
when did you realize you had like the young pride? Like what was the, looking back, and it could be cringy now, kind of like uncomfortable. When's that moment where you're like, okay, like I think this is like, I was very proud right here without even knowing it that you were proud?
So that's a great question. When all this started happening, I was like, I think 17 or 18. And at this point, the youth pastor had sat me down and said, hey, you're the next guy. I'm going to propose you as the next youth leader when I step down. Right. And I was just kind of like, yeah, let's get it done. It wasn't like, yeah, let's talk about this. It was like, yeah, I'm there. Let's get it done.
Yeah.
Let's do the transition of power tomorrow. But one thing that happened is we decided to like plan a little conference with our youth, and I had no experience, and I was like 17 or 18, no experience at all. And we tried to do this conference. We got this worship team, and we were like thinking about who's going to speak, and the team's like, oh, you should do it. You should be one of the speakers. And I was like, I don't know if that's like, they're like, no. Like it's 2-day conference. You get a guest for 1 day and then one of the people here. And I'm like, I mean, I guess. And then I talked to another, like one of my mentors. He's like, yeah, you can, sure. Like, it doesn't look great, but you can.
Yeah.
And I didn't really think much of that. The team is like, yeah, let's do it. You should do it. And so I was calling around. I had a really hard time finding a speaker. Eventually, like someone recommended this guy, and I settled on him. And I called him. He's like, yeah. And so we made like the flyers and the posters. And my pastor came up to me, gave me a flyer with my picture on. He's like, what is this? I was like, well, it's a conference. And he's like, you're just putting yourself out there like that. And I was like, okay, yeah, I see your point. But he's like, even worse, he's like, who's this guy? And I'm like, well, he's like a really good preacher, apparently. He's like, do you know anything about him? I'm like, no. And then I found out that guy was like in serious trouble, problems,
Wow.
And so like in hindsight, like they shut down the conference. Like, yeah, it's not happening. And it was so embarrassing because we're like Instagram, Facebook back then. Facebook was like Facebook posts, and I think
and you're feeling good too because you're you're on the flyer.
Yeah, and I'm like calling the worship team like, hey guys, the conference isn't happening. And I just think I bit off more than I can chew, got a little bit ahead of myself, and that was the first moment that I realized that I have no business. I have no business running so far ahead.
Yeah.
And I think that's one of the challenging things when you're young and in ministry. Mm-hmm. You don't know how to deal with two things. You don't know how to deal with praise, and you don't know how to deal with criticism.
Yeah.
Criticism breaks you. Mm-hmm. Praise builds you.
Yep.
Both are meant to keep you grounded.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Praise keeps you grounded, as does criticism.
Right.
But when you're young and you're somewhat of a decent speaker, you have some charisma, you get showered, right? If I preached the sermon that I preached when I was 16, today it would just be like, all right,
Cool, yeah.
But at 16, that's like, wow, you're that young and preaching that kind of stuff. Someone gives you that little bit of praise, and instantly you platform yourself. Mm-hmm. And so that's one of the challenges when you're young, is it's really easy for your personality and your platform to outpace and outgrow your character. And until you do something really dumb, you don't realize that.
Yeah. Wow. That's good. I like that, how you're, especially in the day that we live now, you can blow up overnight.
Yeah.
Doesn't mean your character and everything else. How people say, yeah, you don't blow up overnight because you were working so hard for so many years. But for some people, like they can, they could blow up overnight without them having a good foundation or the character, like you said, to work with it.
Yeah, and that's the challenge. That's what happened in my life, like few compliments, and few little, hey, you can start preaching Sunday mornings now. And I'm like, yeah, great. Let's do a conference. Let me speak at it. And looking
so when
back,
am I going to be the pastor again?
yeah. In hindsight, I look at it and it's so cringy. It's so hard looking back at that with a straight face. It's like, man, I want to, and like sometimes I'm reminded of those things by either my siblings or my wife. Like,
Right.
remember when this, it's like, I just want to go hide under a rock somewhere. And it's just, I don't even want to think about it, you know?
I love how you said that it's how you deal with praise and criticism, because that's a lot of pride does stem from that. You can measure your pride if how discouraged you get by somebody's comment and how built up you are. Because you're right, we all need encouragement because we're people.
Yeah.
And then we all need criticism because we're people.
Yeah, absolutely.
That's powerful. So slowing down, chilling out a little bit, taking it easy. What would you focus on more versus the, you have the gift development because you're preaching, for example, you're doing all those things. What about, what would you focus on instead if you were to tell yourself, like, what should you focus on?
I know it's going to sound a little bit, maybe cliche is not the right word. Unrealistic.
Okay.
To like, would you really tell yourself this? But honestly, like character development.
Okay.
Because that's part of the problem. This reason why I would tell myself to slow down is because I would constantly find myself in situations where I was struggling.
Mm.
And the reason why I was struggling was because I put myself in those situations prematurely.
Okay.
And so, cool, you have charisma and you can string a few words together eloquently, but that doesn't mean you are mature enough to handle running the conference or leading the youth camp or whatever it may be.
Isn't that funny how in the Slavic culture we assume as long as somebody's a good preacher, it automatically gives them like the star pastor qualities that we look at, leadership, organization, teamwork, whatever, like system development, anything that has to do with organizational leadership, or like as long as he can speak well, he's called to be a leader.
Pretty much. So, yeah, and I'm learning more and more that is absolutely not the case. And I think it's, and that's not to say that everyone who speaks well is unorganized, or
of course not.
Obviously, we don't want to get into extremes here, but just looking at my own life, I would really tell myself, hey, focus on your character development. Deal with these kind of things that you have. Deal with your pride.
Yeah.
Deal with your issues. Deal with your lust. Deal with your struggles. Deal with your anger.
Okay.
Right. Deal with all that stuff.
Yeah.
And if I could speak to my younger self, I'd say, hey, deal with all those things, because if you don't deal with them when you're young, it becomes much harder to deal with them when you're older.
Yeah.
It's easier to suppress when you're older because you have more to lose.
Yeah.
That doesn't mean you've dealt with them. You just suppress them. Now it's like, one of the things is I played sports and I was super competitive.
Mm-hmm.
And we had, multiple soccer teams at our church that we over the years. And I remember I was already a youth leader, and we were playing in a soccer game against another church, and, guys are competitive.
Right.
And situation happened where, this guy, I mean, it was kind of a messed up thing to do. He hit me in the face illegally. Obviously, we're playing soccer, and he just got mad. And in that moment, you're only thinking kind of fight or flight, react. So I turned to him and I give him a nice old push and push him to the ground. And of course, like this whole situation erupts for like his team is behind him, my team is behind me. They're holding him back, they're holding me back, and I'm just kind of like, hey, it's not that serious. Like I just pushed him. But I think the moment where it really hit me was that as they're like doing all this fighting, I look over and all the youth that was out, that I was their youth leader, to kind of support the team because it was a church team, were all looking at me like, oh my goodness,
our youth pastor's about to fight this guy.
And I was like, and that hit me like a brick. So I ended up like, I played for a little bit more. I was like, no, I'll get it under control. And some games it's okay, and then other games are situations that happen where you just let your frustration out. And I realized that I never worked on those areas of character development. I had that competitive nature that led to being really easily angered on the field, or a lot of pride. Like, how could you do this to me? And so I tried to deal with it, and I couldn't. I ended up getting good at suppressing it when I was older. Right. But the more you suppress something, like it's like an arrow. The more you pull it back, when you do finally release it, the more it shoots out, right? The further it goes. And so I ended up like recently, actually, however many months or years ago, I was like, I'm done. I'm not doing that anymore. Because I like to play soccer just to stay active. It's fun. I enjoy it. I grew up playing sports, but I quit, and I'm like, I can't do it anymore because I'll have 8, 9, 10 games where I love everyone loves me, and it's a good game, and we're having a good time. But then that one thing happens, and you just find yourself kind of either doing or saying something that you shouldn't, and it's just not a good look. So I had a guy at that game come up to me after, and this was the hardest thing. And he's like, "Hey, aren't you like the youth pastor and stuff? I'm pretty sure I was listening to you at that conference." He's like, "Hey, I just want to let you know, like brother to brother, it's not a good look." And when I heard that, it hurts. It's embarrassing.
You're just like, oh man.
It's very, very embarrassing. It hurts.
What helped me get all that stuff out in the open is my kids. I thought everything was good. You're chilling, everything's fine. You're working on your character, all that good stuff. And then you start having kids, and then I think they draw everything. I think that's what the God gives them to us, honestly.
Yeah.
They refine us. At least my kids are at that age where they're always talking back. They're got their own opinions. I try to keep them close to me because I want to be a father to them. And if we take trips together, and it's just like, oh my goodness, God. That's what I tell people. You think you have patience. You think you have love. You get married. You kind of work it out with your wife, and then you have kids, and then that's what God really uses to refine.
Shows you how much patience you need and how much love you're lacking. And
so true. What else would you tell yourself? Looking back,
in general, maybe I'll just kind of speed up the next ones so we don't take too much time. But I would definitely tell myself to get better at management in general. Just lots of things. Time. Learn to manage your time. Learn to manage your health. Learn to manage your relationships.
That's good.
Learn to manage your work-life balance. Things like that. Again, those are the things that if you don't learn them while you're young, it becomes that much harder to when you're older. But when you're young, you're really reckless. You don't really think about your future as much, but you think about it maybe in a very general sense.
Yeah.
But you don't think about how your lack of management in certain areas will have an effect on your future life. Yeah. For example, for me, the big one was health. Now, I consider myself to be a relatively healthy person. Right. I played sports my whole life, grew up playing sports. That's what I did for fun. But I have a crazy sweet tooth. And so like for me, it's really hard to like let go of sodas and and junk food. You don't think about that when you're younger. As an example, you just whatever. And then you realize you're 22, 23 and
what's your go-to junk food?
I can't answer that. It's Nutter Butters and a Red Bull. Or it was. I've matured. But when you can't manage that and you realize, you're 22, 23 and you realize you're eating like a child, and you have this unquenchable thirst for energy drinks or whatever, and you're just kind of like, man, this is so unhealthy. It's hard to break that. It's really, really hard to break that that chain, if you will, off of your life.
It's addicting.
It's really,
I think I read one book, Dr. Michael Brown, I think. You know who that is?
Yeah, I've heard of him. Yeah.
I think he has a book. Well, he does have a book. I think it's called The Stronghold of Food. He's the only guy that I know that's ever spoken about this.
I feel a little bit offended that you're talking to me about this.
No. I'm probably way more than you do, bro. I'm probably more out of shape than you are, to be honest.
No, it's
But his point is he was like 300 pounds and he lost a ton of weight after he turned like 50. And then he was talking about how self-control is for the spirit, about how gluttony is also a sin. And basically, I've never heard we Slavics love food.
Yeah.
So we do food with everything all the time. 3 meals, 4 meals, big meals.
I mean, it's biblical. The Bible says the stomach is for food and food is for the stomach.
Right. So. But just the problem is that we're like eating way too much.
Yeah, that's
but
true.
Regardless, the point is that we don't ever talk about it, but you're right. It's simple things that you can have a high quality life or a low quality life.
Yeah,
What
absolutely.
kind of food you feed yourself with. My wife does that green juice stuff.
Yeah.
All the healthy stuff. I hate it, but she always tells me, what kind of quality life do you want to have?
It's true. And until you get a little bit older, you don't really think about that kind of stuff. And it's not just food. I mean, like time management. My big thing in when I was younger was procrastination. I procrastinated everything I ever did in my life.
How'd you overcome that?
I don't know if I still have.
Okay.
I think
I might have a struggle here and there in that.
Yeah, I think I'm a lot better
Sure.
now than I was, but I remember, like, this is one thing that I'm learning is as much, with a grain of salt, as much praise as I have received when I was younger for like how well I was preaching and stuff. And I personally don't think I was that good of a preacher.
Okay.
Or I was like, something to write home about, as they say. Yeah. But when you're young, if you can say a decent sermon, people, they'll give you more praise because you're young. And it's like, hey, as a young guy, that's pretty advanced or whatever. And it's cool. You kind of take it, accept it. Thank you. God bless you, whatever. But now looking back, the amount of times that people would come up to me after church and be like, that was so amazing. And I'm sitting there, I'm like, yeah, I wrote it last night, And I'm thinking to myself, I wonder where I would be now in ministry as a preacher.
If you studied.
Yeah, if I took the time, if they're like, if people are coming up to me, and again, I know this sounds like I'm boasting. I promise you, I'm not. Just a lesson that I've learned. I'm doing the opposite. I'm criticizing myself, or at least I'm trying to. The amount of times that people would come up to me and say, that's a great sermon, and I'm sitting there thinking, what would their reaction be, or how much of an impact would it have on their life if I didn't just wing this the morning of, I woke up an hour earlier and just kind of like threw some notes down, and it helps because I have a translator, so he can kind of keep the time going. So that's one thing, is like I really struggle with that. I procrastinated everything I ever did in my life, and just bad time management, bad health management, bad money management, really bad.
That sounds like the roast of Vitaliy, Isak, huh?
I love it. Yeah. I mean, if I'm talking to you like I would be talking to my younger self. Right. That's the whole point. It's like, dude, grow up and
slap yourself in the face a little bit.
Yeah. Money management was horrible for me. Same thing. It's like, you have money. I had this mentality that like I made money to spend it,
right?
Not to hide it, And so, and then you it's like little things, but you grow up and you realize you're like, man, all these things that I couldn't manage then, if I could, where would I be now?
Right.
If I could manage my health, my finances, my relationships. Relationships is a big one. We don't really manage our relationships when we're young. It's like, you got offended, don't talk to this guy anymore. You got this happened, you're not talking to this guy anymore. Or this relationship crumbled, and then you grow up and you realize it was all over really stupid things.
Yeah.
It's not fun.
Yeah. Dang it.
Yeah.
Wow, man, that's so good. God help us. I love what you said. Studying, I'm sure going to seminary, Bible schools, whatever it is, to put in the discipline for it.
Absolutely.
I think I was just reading this morning in Acts. I should know this. Probably Acts 19. It's part of my Bible reading, I promise. But it's when Apostle Paul comes to Aquila and Priscilla, the building tents, and the Bible says that after he started building tents, more people came to Paul, and he said, "You know what? I'm putting it to the side. I'm going to devote my time into the ministry of the word." It's earlier in Acts, it talks about people were devoted to the ministry and laboring in the word, and prayer, and so it's kind of like it's a work, it's a discipline.
100%.
And may God help us in that. So a couple things as we're wrapping up here. Time's flying super fast.
It is, yeah.
What about now, you're, I'm guessing, closer to 30?
Yeah.
Right there,
a few months from 30.
Wow. So think about, now that you're 30, what are you striving for? What do you want your 30s to accomplish? I guess if you were to, if you're going to be 40, you would say, you know what, this is what I wish by the time I turn 40. This is what I wish I'd accomplish. This is what I wish my focus would go towards now that you are here. And let's say you were 40 and you're talking back to yourself to the day that you're 30, and you're like, okay, I'm glad I did this, this, and this, and this.
Well, first one is all the ones we talked about
right,
the first time, right? Hoping I can, stay consistent, be better at managing my time, my resources. Especially when you're a father, it's one of the things that the hardest thing about fatherhood, just kind of side note tangent, is a proper balance, because if you work a lot, you feel guilty that you don't see your kids. But if
Right.
you spend too much time with your kids and don't work, you feel guilty because you're not doing everything you can for them.
Yes.
And so I'm trying to figure that out and hoping by 40, I can learn to take life at a more slower pace,
Right.
manage my time, my resources, and make sure I properly balance work, ministry, and all the other stuff I do. But mainly, if I could, I guess if we're reversing the question, 40 looking back, I think to myself, when you're young, you see everything in such a big picture.
Okay.
Like, oh, I want to be wealthy, have a big family, and or whatever, have a big ministry, right? I can see myself as a pastor of a mega church. When you grow up, you realize that, things are better in a smaller bubble.
Yeah.
And so I'm looking into my future and hoping that by then, I will have a deeper, stronger impact on my local church. Serve there and like we are now, and just consistently invest and help and do whatever we can. Mainly it's really smaller picture, smaller bubble stuff, right?
Yeah.
Like I want to be a good father to my children, a good husband to my wife, a good pastor in my church.
That's good.
And a good person in my community, just smaller circle, the more you grow up, I think maybe this isn't true for you or for other people, but for me, it seems like the more I grew up, the more realistic my expectations for myself became.
That's right.
And the smaller my bubble of dreams and hopes and wishes. Not that like, oh, I grew up and now I'm lazy or I don't have ambitions. I do, but they're more realistic, and they're more achievable. Right. And so, looking in the next 10 years, I'm just thinking of these small little things that I can do to have a small influence.
It kind of seems like, relationships begin to mean more. Yeah. I think that's kind of what it's coming down to, because it's like, if you have a smaller group, but you're close to them, you're impactful, you're relational, you begin to value people over things. That's what I'm learning, at least now.
Yep, 100%.
So it's kind of like you can screw somebody over for $1,000, whatever. Yeah. But that relationship is going to be worth way more, and it's more valuable. And
100%.
I don't want you to give me a cup of coffee as much as I want you to have a cup of coffee with me, for example, right? So it's kind of like that, type of deal. So I'm thinking, that's so good. And that's what I'm working on, at least, to be more intentional about.
I like that word, intentional.
Yeah.
I said it all without saying the word. It's I said it as one of my goals this year because I noticed that, last year there's so much going on. I have a ministry within the church. I do a lot of traveling and speaking engagements. I host weddings. I have a full-time job. And with all of that, I realized that all the cliches that we hear about, for example, fatherhood, that all the kids grow up so fast. They grow up fast because we're absent. Yeah. My wife always tells me, she's like, well, it's a little bit slower for me because I'm with him 24/7. And so I made a goal for myself to be a little bit more intentional about those things and stop being such a yes man to absolutely everything. And that was kind of a hard hurdle to jump over for me, is because, I feel like, and one thing I was taught by one of my mentors, he's like, hey, specifically in regards to ministry, I asked him, I said, well, how do you figure out a good balance? He said, you're in a season right now where you're young. God has given you a gift, a talent, or ability. You should use it. There's going to be a time where you're not going to be invited anymore. Yeah. You're not going to be respected anymore. Maybe not respected, but not the same way, right? Right. There's going to be a time when they're going to be thinking about the next conference speaker and your name isn't going to come up anymore. Well, because it's a youth conference and you're 45 and maybe you don't really, or whatever it may be. And so one of my mentors told me that, and I ran with it, while there's an opportunity, it's like, hey, while there's work, you should work, because maybe tomorrow there won't be. So I'm learning the benefits of being more intentional, a little bit more grounded in my intentions and not just being a yes man, but also small things that like I'm working on and hoping change in my life. And it's hard to learn these things because they challenge you, and it's like self-criticism, like not to be to be more straightforward and honest about things. you know?
Yeah.
If someone calls you and says, hey, can you do this, instead of beating around the bush for 20 minutes, taking 10 phone calls to figure it out, you just say, hey, no, I can't do it. Right? Yes, yes, no, no. And it's just like, I look at, for example, a schedule. Someone calls me and says, hey, we have this thing going on in this area.
Yeah.
These dates, can you do it? And I'm looking at my calendar. I have something the day before in a completely different area, and I'm calculating the drive time. I'm like, yeah, I think it should happen because I want to be part of it.
Right.
I'm just not being very, I'm just not being very realistic and not straightforward, not honest. Exactly. And you just put yourself in a tough situation where there's expectations, and, you know, like, or the church asks, you know, one of the pastors said, hey, can you help us with this? And I look at my week, and work schedule is crazy, traveling a little bit, but I still want to help.
Mm-hmm.
But I don't want to tell my pastor that I'm busy. So I'll take on this project. You're 3-4 days in and you're like, I shouldn't have done that.
Yeah.
And then you kind of drag it on. You don't do a great job, where it's like, hey, first you should be honest and say, I'm very busy. I probably can't handle this right now.
Yeah.
But then if you do get to the point where you take it on and you're 2-3 days in, it's better to just be honest then and call and say, hey, look, I know I took it on, but I'm finding it really difficult. Can we get some more people involved?
Right.
But we typically don't do that because it's degrading.
Suffer through it.
We suffer through it, and then the end result,
yeah,
and then the end result just isn't great. Yeah. And you look back and you're like, okay.
Then your kids are absent, and your wife is mad at you, and so what I'm hearing from you is the intentional with relationships, and then now you're saying basically, when you're more clear in your vision, it allows you to filter through decisions.
100%.
Yeah.
Bro, you're putting it a really good way. I like it. I'm over here saying a million things. You're just like, oh, you could just phrase that in one sentence right here.
I'm just listening to what you're saying. Because I agree. I'm in the same, boat in certain areas. What I do want to say is that if you're developing your gift, and God's given it to you, then there will be new doors opening up. You know, we shouldn't be like, oh, there's always work to do. No, there's always work to do in the kingdom of God.
100%.
And if you're developing your gift, you're doing your work, then you should never be worried about, oh, what if there's no work to do?
Well, yeah, I guess.
I guess part of that, I say that because part of that I would say is you want to look at the long-term picture always, long-term results, long-term. And sometimes it's hard to see long-term.
Yeah, and more like in the context of, you know, going through the open doors that you're saying at the expense of your own health and well-being, and at the expense of your family and whatnot. But I would, the way you put it's amazing, right? Just filter through more. And I think one more thing that I'm seeing now is when you're young, and it depends on how you were raised, the culture and the church that you grew up in. But when I was young, I saw everything as black and white.
Okay.
And I'm learning now, and it's unfortunate that it took this long, that not everything is black and white.
Yeah.
Some things are gray. And obviously I'm not talking about sin or things like that, right? What's black is meant to be black, what's white is meant to be white. But there's a lot of things that I used to be very critical and judgmental about: ministers, ministry, certain aspects, certain types and styles of ministry. And I'd be like, no, this is wrong.
Yeah.
You know, and then you have a conversation with someone and you hear their heart and you're like, man, I shouldn't have been so quick to judge. You know, and I'm learning that because I had a conversation recently in New York with some friends about, and I don't want to say what the topic is, but it's, you know, something that happens in some churches. It's more present in the charismatic, like pseudo-charismatic movement. And they asked me, what is your thoughts? And I just jumped the gun and I don't like that. I don't think it's biblical. It's wrong. It's weird, whatever. And then I got
slain the spirit. Just kidding. Just kidding.
No.
Then I was on the floor. I was in the third heaven.
Yeah, right. And then some of the guys that we were talking to brought up some really good questions, and I found myself kind of stumbling over my words, and I'm like, man, I've been so black and white over this topic for the last 10 years, and here I am when I'm actually challenged about it, stumbling and not being able to, you know, to answer. And one guy asked a simple question: if you were at a church service and that started happening, would you leave? And I was like, yeah, I mean, I don't think I would.
Right.
And he's like, well, then you're not true to your convictions. I mean, that's a stretch, but I see the point. I see the point. You know, I see the point. And a lot of other conversations, and I kind of stepped back, and I felt like really for the first time in my life, I didn't really have anything to say.
Yeah.
He just kind of took the L and just sat there. And I was like, oh man, I could be wrong about this.
Yeah.
And so I'm learning now is like, hey, you burn a lot of bridges being black and white that you don't have to burn just because someone sees things a little bit differently than you do. Now, obviously,
There's certain things, yeah.
But at the risk of, again, making the same problem, right? You jump the gun and you...
Right.
I think there are certain things that are very clear, clear violations of scripture and just maybe moral, ethical code and proper Christian behavior. Certain things aren't, and I get there's a tendency, a desire, and sometimes there's a need to be black and white.
Right.
But on certain things, you take a position, you take a stance, you defend it, you burn bridges doing it, you lose friends over it, and then 2 years later, 3 years, 5 years, you realize, man, I could have been wrong the whole time.
Wow.
And so I'm just sitting here like more and more now, and this is one of the things I think the Lord has given me grace to do, like genuinely, truly, is I found myself after that conversation having a few conversations with people where things like that were brought up, and for the first time, I'm not like, oh yeah, that's wrong, or oh yeah, that's fully right, or I just take a step, hey, I don't want to be quick to judge.
Yeah.
Maybe for them it is, or whatever the answer is. But it feels better now, not being like
so judgmental about
not
it.
being judgmental and not saying, you're not being black and white. It just feels better. So
that's so good. It's just growing in grace. That's what it sounds like,
Yeah,
growing
for sure.
in grace. That's so powerful. Man, thank you so much for your time. That was at least 45 minutes, but I love it.
You're welcome.
Thank you for your time. Any closing words? Anything people can find you, Vitaliy, Isak? People need some weddings done. You do some weddings. You do some.
Well,
I'm bit of everything.
I mean, I host weddings, and I have a full-time job, and I'm a father and a husband and a
church
preacher and minister at a church. So, all I can say is God bless you all, and don't think about life in such a big bubble. Slow down, take it easy. Work on your character development, maintain your relationships, maintain your peace, manage your time, your money, and do all the things that you'll be proud of yourself in 10 years for doing.
Amen.
Don't live for today.
Love it. Okay. God bless you guys.
God bless.
See ya.